do you think of when somebody says the letters GT? Guatemala, perhaps? Gay times? Gin and tonic? Or perhaps you think of a certain motoring television programme?
Edit that out.
All of them? Well, I think of a car like this. The rather wonderful DB11. The GT car, the Gran Turismo, seems like a staple of the motoring landscape. It's been around since, well, about the 1920s, really. And yet, the genre has never really been tied down. We know that this Aston Martin is a GT car. Front engine, rear-wheel drive, 2 doors, capable of doing long distances, but also being fun when you reach your destination. That's, in essence, what I think of when I think of a GT car. But others, well, they think the formula can be stretched a little. People like McLaren.
The 570GT is, let's face it, the better looking sibling to the 570S. That sleeker rear just makes the whole car more cohesive. Under the skin, however, the same turbocharged 3.8 litre V8 still pumps out 562 brake horsepower and 443 pounds-foot of torque, and the top speed remains an impressive 204 miles an hour.
In the McLaren, you just feel so much closer to your surroundings out here, not just because of the airy cockpit, but you're right in the front of the nose. It's much more like being in a fighter jet. It is properly fast, this as well. It's in a different league to the Aston, I have to say. Don't think they've softened the GT in terms of performance. What a feeling. So, we know that the McLaren can do the sports car bit. Of course it should be able to do that. But can it do the other side of the GT thing? Could I imagine myself doing a really long journey in one of these? Well, yes, and I have. I mean, I drove it up here, but to me, the 570GT is much more like the original MP412C, which was a car that, well, owners loved it as well, because you could use it not only every day, but you didn't mind going on long journeys with it. Yes, there are obviously things that, well, make it a little less sort of easy to live with getting into it for a start. There's obviously the luggage space issue as well, although to be honest the Aston Martin's boot isn't huge, and fine, you can use the back seats for luggage, but this, you know, you can fit a fair amount in the front, and as long as you lash it down, then you can put some stuff on this rear shelf as well through the hatch, which you get inevitably muddy as you lean over to put stuff in there, but it's fine. Just lash it down, you don't want tins of baked beans flying around. One of the things that obviously marks the DB11 out as the supreme GT car is its ride. It's just wonderfully relaxing, that sort of long-limbed feel. And the McLaren can actually compete on that front. You might not expect it, but as we go over nice crescent, it floats across the ground. It's still a sports car, but it has this air of being able to cope with rough roads extremely well. And so you get to the end of the journey and you don't feel beaten up. And I think that is absolutely key to what potentially makes this a credible GT car. Of course, if McLaren can claim that this is a GT car, then why not stretch it in the other direction as well? Why not think of something like the new Porsche Panamera Turbo?
The big Porsche 4-door has more torque than both the 570GT and the DB11, putting out 542 brake horsepower and 568 pounds-foot from its new 4-litre twin-turbo V8. All Panameras now come with 4-wheel drive and PDK gearboxes, while this turbo also has rear-wheel steer and a new 3-chamber air suspension system. Inside you have delicious black panel surfaces, haptic buttons and an enormous and very attractive 12.3-inch touchscreen.
Of course, confusingly, Porsche has a GT cars department, but I suppose in sort of, you know, showing just how confusing the whole GT thing is, their GT cars are to do with the race side of things, GT regulations. So they're not the sort of GT cars we're talking about here at all. Of course, some might say that a GT needs to be, well, beautiful, and the Panamera, well, I mean, it's more handsome than the old one. It's got more of the sort of Porsche 4-door thing going on, but pretty. Clearly the Porsche Panamera is sort of the inverse, really, of the McLaren. It's clearly a lovely thing to do long journeys in. It's just sumptuous in here, wonderfully comfortable, and you have all this amazing technology to fill your time. But is it a sports car? Well, if you twist this here through Sport and then Sport Plus, I think you get the answer.
Given all the hardware, it's no surprise that the Porsche weighs over 2 tonnes, and as such you might expect it to lag behind the Aston and the McLaren in terms of performance. But not a bit of it. This 5-metre long car can haul itself from a standstill to 60 miles an hour in just 3.4 seconds, which is half a second quicker than the Aston.
That is ludicrously fast.
Yes, I know that's probably not the adverb to use, but I don't see why Tesla should have the monopoly on it. Anyway.
In many respects, the turn-in is actually sharper than the McLaren's as well. This is a big 4-seater that thinks it's a sports car. It's madness. And of course, when you don't get the grace of the other cars, you do get that rear spoiler. I mean, the deployment of it is just, it's almost worth the price of the car alone. It's so fun. You almost want to be in a car behind it just so you can watch it sort of unfolding, origami-like, transformer-like. Did I mention the rear spoiler? Of course, what the Panamera does have on its side is back there, where you've got 2 extra seats. I mean, proper seats. I mean, I know the Aston's got seats, but they really are only for occasional use. Of course, you might not be particularly sociable. You might not want to carry 2 extra people everywhere you go with you, so you could just use the extra luggage space. Go further. Carry some skis. More underwear. Sheep! 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 Which is what carbon ceramic brakes are for. Sheep. So what have we learnt after our day up on the North Yorkshire moors, apart from the fact that sheep are stupid? Well, yes, I think the GT category can be expanded. The McLaren, to me, yes, you have to accept a little more intimacy with your surroundings and the road, but I like the way you can do long distances in it. It's not a classic GT like the Aston, but the GT, yes, I think you can view it in those terms. The Panamera, that I find harder to see, I think. And to be fair, Porsche's not really selling it as a GT. It was my idea, but perhaps it's the 4 seats, perhaps it's the styling of it, I don't know. A GT, no. But what I think it is possibly the most broadly talented car on sale today.